Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the ball that we're going to use in our Pong style game. So you want to come down here and make sure that you click on layer and make sure that you are currently on the game world layer. Then you're going to click in an open space and choose create. For the type, we're going to go ahead and give this a category, and that will be ball. And then for the name, we'll go ahead and type in ball again. Before we get into editing the sprite, we're going to go ahead and click on the physics panel here. We're going to make sure that movable is set. We're going to go ahead and uncheck affected by gravity. And you can leave everything else the way it is. We're going to make sure that the collision shape is set to circle, so that way it behaves with collisions and objects, things like that, as a ball. And we're going to actually, we're going to come here and we're going to change our first physics slider here. So you'll see that we have density, bounce, and friction. We're going to go ahead and change the density to 0. We're going to change, or actually you can't go to pure 0, it's 0.1. We're going to change the friction down to 0. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to up the bounce. We'll go ahead and make it maximum. And of course, you can always come back when you're doing play testing and you can play around with that. Now, for enable rotation, this would allow it to rotate and spin in the air while it's bouncing. Again, you can turn this on or off. I'm going to make my ball look a little bit like a beach ball, so it has kind of a stripe effect. So I'm going to want to turn this on so I can actually see the stripes spinning around like my mouse is doing. But for most of you, if you're going to keep it at a square, you're going to probably want to leave this turned off. Okay, so that's kind of an option. And I might change my mind later, but for now, I'm going to leave that turned on. Go back here to properties, and we'll go here to enable or to edit sprite. So again, here you can do whatever you want. I will tell you that if you want to do a more detailed painting session here, you can change the grid to something smaller like 1.0, or you can go ahead and if you want to just do a solid color, you can bring the grid spacing up and you can go ahead and just paint it whatever color you want. And if you want a solid color one, you can just grab the paint bucket tool and you can just fill your colors like that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take this over into Pixlr. Again, you can do this in any image editing program. I'm going to choose Create New. I'm going to change my width and my height to 32 by 32. For the background, you can leave that enabled or disabled. It doesn't matter. It's going to get covered up anyway. And actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, since I'm going to be making a beach ball style, I'm going to leave it as the background is disabled because we're going to make it a circle. We don't want to see the corners. So I'm going to leave it disabled and press create. So there's my background there. I need to zoom in, so I'm going to go up here to view, and I'm going to go ahead and do fill screen. And actually, I think I want to step back a little bit. So when you do the zooming option, unfortunately, you can go ahead and choose all of these that you want, but there's no way to just zoom to fit. If you go ahead and say fit screen, or if you do fill screen, it fills the entire screen, but you can't see the outer boundaries. So I found that you still have to go here to the zoom tool. Let's try fit, yeah, and full. So it's not, doesn't quite work. So that's full, and then I'm gonna have to click here on minus and just click a couple of times until I see all 4 sides. So there we go there. So a minor annoyance, but it's a free program, so what are you gonna do? Okay, so there's 2 ways that we can go about making a perfect circle. The first way is you could take the brush tool and come over here to the brush picker, and I could go ahead and I could choose a solid brush and I'm going to choose the hard edge brush. Come on out here, and I can basically change the size of my brush by pressing the comma key or by pressing the period key, and that will change my brush size. Or I could come up here and I could choose a brush size that seems to fit. So again, this is a little bit of trial and error. You can keep changing the size until you get it right. That's too big. So it's a little bit of trial and error here, so that's kind of annoying. And then when you find the right size, you could just click in the center and you would have a circle. The other way is to come down here and click on the Shapes tool, and then come up here and click on the Circle tool. You want to make sure your opacity is set to 100%. For the stroke, this is how thick the brush stroke is. So you can see that's a setting of 2. I think you're going to want it to be set to a setting of 2 or greater. And you can choose if you want it to have a solid fill or not. If you have the solid fill option on, it's going to use whatever your secondary color is here. Right now mine is black. So if I drag this out, you'll see I've got a white stroke with a black fill. Again, I'm going to make kind of a beach ball style. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave the fill turned off. All right, so how to make a perfect circle. So what you want to do is you want to hold down the Shift key, and then you click and drag out, and by holding down Shift, it's going to make sure that the height and the width are the same. All right, so there we go. So now I can move this layer around by clicking on the Arrange tool, and this allows me to drag it up and down, and I can also go ahead and I can click on these little squares, and I can go ahead and make sure that it's just fitting to the canvas just perfectly. So now my top, sides, and the bottom are all down here, and they're looking pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and now come over here to the Paint Bucket Fill tool. I'm going to click once, and you can see that it went ahead and it filled in. Now, the reason why you're seeing these little gaps right here is because of this setting here called tolerance. If I increase that number, it would go ahead and it would fill in, or you can fill it in manually. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the brush tool and fill it in manually. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to come over here with my layers, and I'm going to go ahead and add a layer. On your screen, if it pops up and asks you what kind of layer do you want, you're going to choose empty. And for this layer, again, I said I'm going to create a beach ball style. I'm going to go ahead and change my main color. I'm going to choose a bright red and say OK. Okay, so from here on, excuse me, from here on out, you could basically do anything you wanted to. I'm going to come back over here to the Shapes tool, and I'm going to grab the Line tool, and I'm going to go ahead, hide these ads here, and I'm going to go ahead and come right up here to the top center, and I'm going to drag out my line, something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do another one right in the center. And you can see I can move the line, something like that. I was off by a little bit, so maybe I'll come right here. That's a tiny bit better. I'm still off by a little bit. So I can change the stroke from 2 down to 1. There we go. Let's see if that gives me a little bit of a better result. It's a little bit better. Again, this is 32 by 32 pixels, so I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. Okay, so now I can switch back to the brush tool, and I can manually go ahead and change this here. So I would choose a one of these hard-edged circles, and now I can come in here and I can just manually um, go in here and brush. I'm not going to make you watch this. I can't do the paint bucket tool because if I could just click in here, it's going to basically, it has no border here. What you can do though is you could very carefully, I'm going to change my brush size to a size of 2. There we go. And you can go over the boundary here. And again, I'm doing this on a trackpad, so just take your time. And then once you do the boundary, then you can go ahead and grab the paint bucket tool and you can fill. So I'll go ahead and do that on the other side. Okay, so let's finish up. So it looks pretty good. To test it out, you want to come up here to View and do Fit Screen. And that's actually what it's going to look like in game. And so you can see, because it's so small, 32 by 32, I think that will look all right. So really just with 2 layers over here, I could make a 3rd layer and do another color. And I could do 4 separate colors so it really spin around. I think I'm going to keep it a simple 2-color color scheme here. So you're going to come up here to File, and we're going to do 2 saves. So I'm going to go ahead and call this Pong Ball, and I'm going to click on PXD, and that's going to then download with all of my layers, and that's saving your master file. If you're in an image editing program like Photoshop, you'd want to save it as a PSD with all of your layers, so that way you could always come back to it and make all your changes. To bring it into Flowlab though, I'm going to do File Save. Now, you have a choice between JPEG and PNG. This time, because I'm doing a circle sprite, you have to choose PNG. And the reason why is because we don't want to see the little corners, the 4 little corners of our sprite. If I choose a JPEG, JPEGs do not allow transparency. And so you'll see that it added in the white corners there, and that's what I don't want. So when in doubt, always choose PNG, and you can't go wrong. All right, so again, I'm going to call this Pong Ball, but this time it's going to be pongball.png. And I'll go ahead and I'll download it. Okay, I'll go back to Flowlab. I'll come up here and I'll choose Edit Sprite, Upload, choose my file, and I can go ahead and find the PNG version. And let's see what that looks like in game. Okay, there we go. So far it looks pretty good. I will see you in the next video tutorial. Thanks, everyone.